quorum. Call the meeting to order at 5:35. And I think that we have enough time to go through the minutes before we open the public hearing. All right, everybody okay with that? All right. So first we'll look at the minutes from January 25th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from budget meeting of January 25th? Brent, second.
I'll second.
Tammy, second. Discussion?
Yes,
Okay.
line 39. It should say firefighters that complete fire 1 and fire 2 receive it. It's not just, they don't get it every year. It's once they've completed that training, they receive it as a one-time.
Okay.
41. It starts on the previous page. The car being used for meetings, etc., for all town personnel. It makes it sound like it's just for the firefighters, and it's a town car for all town personnel.
For all, okay.
I'm
Is
sorry, which line is this?
41. Being used for meetings, etc., for all town personnel.
Okay.
43, supplemental plan that covers, can we change them to firefighters?
Okay.
Or firemen, no firefighters, because there are women too.
Okay.
46, the mechanical gate for 8,000 has not been spent and will not be needed. Take out the gap.
Okay.
As far as I got, sorry.
Further discussion on the minutes from the 25th?
Can I just make a comment on line 53? It's the opposite, where it says they're on a calendar year, not fiscal year. It's the opposite. They're on a
Oh.
fiscal year, not calendar.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't catch that.
Okay.
Everything else is good to me. Thank you, Tracy. for doing
Mhm.
this.
Okay, anything else? All in favor of approving the January 25th minutes as amended, please raise your right hand, and say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay, the minutes are passed with the 25th unanimously. I'll leave it up to put up a discussion as to whether we want to do the meeting minutes from the 27th. Because they came out kind of late. They didn't get to drive. They just came out, and which is understandable. That's the way the schedule we had it, and they're 9 pages long. And we don't have to go over these. If you'd rather have more time to read through them, we can go over them in another meeting.
I would love more time.
What's that?
I would love more time.
I thought so too, but I brought them in case, because there's so much, all of our recommending votes were in. And so if somebody wants to refer to something, it's here.
Just better to get it right.
Yeah. Okay,
Table until the next meeting.
yes. Okay. Open the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, second. All in favor? Okay. It's just a couple of the guidelines they say for a public hearing is that generally the public is here is it's about 3 minutes each. We try to keep everybody speaking, 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, you move on. Nobody speaks twice until everybody has been recognized once. And then it's an interesting thing, and we've always allowed it, and I think in every public hearing that we've heard, is that you don't necessarily have to allow questions to be asked. They don't necessarily ask questions to the board unless you choose to do that. It's a time for them. It's a time for them to speak how things are affecting them and their opinion on it and their thoughts on it. But any board does not have to allow questions to the board. However, I think in practice, is all the boards allow questions from everything that I've read and everything that I've seen. Is that true? Jim?
Yeah.
In your public hearings, I think it's selected. Is that about the, you do it too? Okay. And then it's just a matter of, we could use a sign-up sheet. We didn't. And a lot of these things were put in place before the advent of Zoom. And so they'd have a room full of people, but
So I
we don't
guess,
have that.
maybe suggesting that we just read who's in the audience for the record.
Okay, yes, good idea. And it appears that we have,
Just Ryan Fairbrother.
yeah, Ryan Fairbrother. And if anybody else comes in and
The other
somebody,
two members of the select board.
I'm sorry.
Jack and Oda.
Jack's hiding over.
Chairman, this is Ray. Do you hear me?
Yes, Ray.
Okay, thank you.
You're not audience, you're a budget committee member. We count you in a different column.
Right, yes, we have Jack Daly and OJ Robinson in the audience.
The selectmen met prior to this meeting and went over the budget and made a
Okay.
couple of changes.
Okay.
Would you like to know what those are?
Yes,
We amended our recommendation of the budget to match the operating total that the budget committee recommended at $7,461,916. So we will go in with a unified operating budget.
okay,
However, we changed our recommendation for the reserve and trust articles.
okay. Did everybody catch that? What
You
she
say the
said?
number again.
It's just the same. Your budget number of $7,461,916 for the
Sixth column.
operating total.
Sixth column over or so.
Yeah, the budget committee recommended up. We amended ours to match, agreeing with the changes that you made. And I have those specifically if you needed those.
What was the second part of what you were?
The second part is we also amended the reserve and trust articles. We added $10,000 to the road and street construction, which is the amount taken out of the cemetery budget, reflecting the amount of the roads and streets at the recommendation of the committee. It was to be taken out of the capital reserve,
Yes.
so we'd like to add that into that.
Yes.
Also, we added the 15,640 into the property and building maintenance line item
Mhm.
to reflect the carpet and flooring. Again, because the budget committee's recommendation was to take that out of that CIP.
Mhm.
So the new total for road and street construction is 133,000. For property and building maintenance is 58,640, for a total of 1,095,736. Basically, that's 1,095,736. And that is what the special warrant articles, we also stayed with our Board of Selectmen total of $284,073. So the operating total is the same. However, the reserve trust articles and special warrant articles will be different at town meeting. The budget committee had, I know that the special warrant articles lines are voted on and done, and I get that you didn't recommend the 40,000 for the architectural design of the police fire building. However, I would like to ask the budget committee reconsider the total for the trust fund and capital reserve articles to include those amounts that you recommended come out of the CIP.
Excuse the 10,000 and the 15.
Yes, sir.
Please, sir.
Well, my dad would disagree.
All right, so if I may back up, 15,640, I see where road and streets went on, 15,640 now went into where?
Property and building maintenance.
There it is. Total, does anybody add that? What is the total?
58,640.
1 million.
Oh, the $1,095,000, $95,736, 1095736.
And that's the subtotal for the CRF trust funds?
Correct.
right.
The property and building maintenance total was 58,640. And then.
Right.
Road and street just went up 10 to 133.
All right, because we would need to vote on those and vote
Those
on the
three.
total. So how about if we do that and then we address the, if anybody wants to, address the discussion about the police and fire station.
Conceptual design,
Architectural design, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
that's not confused.
The construction of, right.
right. I had that one. I'm building it for 40 grand.
Done.
Okay, has everybody followed along on Zoom there? Everybody's together? Any questions?
No,
Okay, is there a motion to recommend the budget for road and street reconstruction in the amount of $133,000? Al,
1 second.
have a second, discussion?
So we can still increase the budget at this hearing, is that correct?
After this hearing, you cannot, but
Okay.
until, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the road and street construction line in trust fund for 132,000, please raise your right hand, and say aye.
All right,
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey,
1, 2.
2. And
Paul and Ray both were against it.
Oh, Vegas against two?
no,
It was just
delayed.
Paul and Jimmy that would know.
I think Paul, yeah.
okay, abstain? Okay, the new budget for road and street construction reserve fund is $133,000 is recommended.
Are you counting in the yeses?
did we not have any discussion on it, Mr. Chair?
We did, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Nobody said anything.
Yeah, we voted, so it's done. Am I counting the yeses?
Are you counted in the yeses? You personally? No.
Doesn't, no,
It's only tiebreaker.
Okay,
That's
Or-
his choice.
yeah, that's- or make a tie or break a tie. But that's not gonna happen. Okay, then we'll move on to the property and building maintenance. Is there a motion to recommend property and building maintenance reserve amount of $58,640? Motion Al,
I'll second.
Tammy second. Discussion? Yes, Paul?
Yeah, could I have a reason why we're increasing the budget items? These reserve items by this amount instead of using the amount that's already in the reserves?
I will answer that.
Go ahead.
They, at the budget committee's urging, that the selectmen take these amounts and these projects out of the capital reserve instead of putting them in the budget. However, they were never specifically budgeted in the capital reserve. That wasn't, we don't have 10,000 in the capital reserve to cover Riverside. I think, whatever the road is, Cemetery Road, sorry, I don't know what the name of it is. We don't have the 15,640 specifically budgeted in the capital reserve item for the flooring and the carpet. And they need to be done. Just because they weren't budgeted for, they still need to be done, which is why we had put them in the operating budget. At the budget committee's urging, they came out, or vote, or whatever, they came out of the operating budget. The selectmen feel they need to be put into the capital reserve fund if that's where the budget committee wants us to fund them out of.
And you don't feel that there's enough money in the current capital reserves to be able to do these projects this year without, and continue on in another year and with the other projects that are gonna be done?
We really don't. We did have pretty good discussions about that and tried to think outside the box of other funding options, and we just don't. We just don't feel that there's money in there now to adequately fund these.
So-
Yeah, I don't see, I just don't see how I can say that, Tammy, because there's a substantial amount of money in both those accounts. And the CIP meets every year. So if you take out 1 year, you can always put it back the next year and increase that amount. So I find it hard to believe that there's not that kind of money in the CIP to be able to do that. And then take a look at it the following year and readjust if it needs be.
We respectfully disagree.
Yeah, that was kind of gonna be,
That's okay. I understand it.
it's a.
That's fine. I made my comment. Done.
All right. Strikes me as a little bit scary if we don't have an extra 10 or 15,000 in CIP. I thought that was kind of a discretionary cash flow to deal with these types of things as they come up. For example, if the furnace breaks and you need it tomorrow, where does that come from? The CIP, right? So I'm thinking, I'm a little perplexed that there wouldn't be, that it's actually allocated to that level where that might wouldn't be there.
Okay.
Am I allowed to speak?
Yeah.
There's $2,000 in the CIP dedicated toward the this building's maintenance.
Town building.
On the town building. Out of that, we've already started taking the steps to replace the front doors, which don't lock or open or function properly, and the police department doors, which they're having problems with.
Yeah.
So those two items together, about 20 grand.
Roughly.
Half of that 40 is gone. We are having problems with the furnace to a point where it's 27 years old.
24, 27,
24,
20, yeah.
Anyway, and it's not functioning properly, and we're spending money on a repairman to come and, needle it along to make it last a little bit more and a little bit more. That needs to be replaced before next winter. Those two items, the doors and the furnace, are gonna take that
And
$40,000
more.
fund and wipe it down to zero. So yes, we do have money in there, but there's two significant things that came up that we need to address with that. And as a selectman, my vote is gonna be to do the doors, which is a safety and security issue, and do the furnace, which is a no-brainer, over carpeting and tile. So we're not gonna take that out of CIP and instead not do the doors or not do the furnace.
Furnace.
At least that's how I'm gonna vote.
Another thing with the furnace too is that it's having to be reset a lot. Like, you come in the morning and parts of the building are ice cold because certain zones have just turned off. So
I don't think you need to convince anybody that this furnace needs to be replaced. It's 27 years old. I would just go ahead and get it replaced so you don't throw money at an old furnace.
working on that,
Put the Band-Aids
working on
on.
quotes, yeah.
But it just seems like the nature of capital improvement fund, there'd be some
I don't,
money out there.
Well, I think that was
So-
addressed at the selectmen's meeting as well, that
So,
hindsight is 20/20.
yeah. So if this 10,000 gets added to that, it's gonna be earmarked for the carpeting then? I mean, that still is a discretionary
15 for the
15,000.
flooring.
15,000 is gonna be earmarked for the floor for this building, is that my understanding? Because it's not already done.
And another about the flooring too is we had somebody at the window literally stand and the tile literally came up while they were standing there. We had
Again,
to move a rug. and
everybody agrees
cover.
the flooring needs to be fixed,
Yeah.
but it's just a question of where it comes
Right.
from.
I was under the impression last week that when it came out of there, it was gonna be put into CIP. That's what I thought, it comes out of CFP.
I think Paul's take is there's plenty of discretionary I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think his point was there's plenty of discretionary money in the CIP already.
And the only thing that I throw this in is that they switched to level funding this past year, which basically kept 3%, which I think is about $30,000 out. And then canceled the police and fire station conceptual design. And
Just the
so
addition to that.
there's
Yeah.
40,000 out. And then we have this, which is 15, and 640 is another 25. 20, if you were gonna add it in, 25,000 out. So I think it was fiscally responsible. I think that not fiscally responsible, but there was cuts made in the CIP. And sometimes it's one of those, we keep saying, okay, well, we'll find it out of somewhere else, find it out of somewhere else, find it out of somewhere else, and something else doesn't get done. So I see a shrinkage in the CIP. And then 25 of it was put back, but that came out of the planning, which, as I said, when I was here last week, that's what I thought it was intended to do, take it out of CIP. Yes, Paul?
Yeah, during the CIP process, as I explained last week, it was originally at the end of it, the total CIP had been reduced by some $59,000. There had been no requests such as these to be put into the CIP at that time. And so what we did was we put that extra, if you want to call it extra, the money that had not been appropriated to other CIP items into water and sewer. I would think we would change and use that $59,000 instead of putting it into water and sewer to just sit there to do these projects here. So reduce the water and sewer amounts that were budgeted and take these items out of that.
And my recollection from the minutes was that was pretty much the negotiation you had with water and sewer in order to go to level funding.
No, that wasn't it. That wasn't it at all. We had unexpended, we had, at the end of the CIP, the amount that was to be approved was lower than last year's amount by $59,000. And we discussed where to put it. And had these requests been made available at that time, I'm saying that we most certainly probably would have addressed them with that $59,000. Not having the benefit of this request, it went to water and sewer. And what I'm saying is, if you're going to change this, change it and add it to the CIP, then probably should consider changing the amounts of the water and sewer that the additional money had gone into. I mean, that $59,000 could have gone into any request that was made of the CIP committee, and the CIP would have addressed it. This request never made that. So I think it's only prudent to take a look at that.
I think Paul's recollection is correct. We were under being level funded and we added money to water and sewer to build it up to level funded.
Oh, I agree to that,
Yeah, so-
but I remember reading the minutes, and it was part of a negotiation, kind of like, hey, okay, let's do this. We won't use that for the 3% inflationary, but you can always use a pump. Yeah, right, okay, we'll give you this for the pump. We'll give you this for that. And it was basically, it was given out to, here, go do this, go do that.
Well, we asked where the need, Mike, we asked where the needs were, and taking a look at the town as a whole, and in the future, because that's what the CIP is for. That's where that money went. Again, as I said, had these requests been brought to the CIP committee and discussed, they probably would have been addressed at that time. Can't say that because the CIP committee has met, but that money that's there certainly is not needed eminently in water and sewer. And that monies could be reappropriated to these amounts.
The selectmen absolutely agree with that. And in the future, the CIP needs will be addressed properly.
Tammy, you're talking about the future, but we're talking about
If
making
we're on
changes there
However, that doesn't negate
tonight.
the fact that they weren't addressed properly this year, and there is still a need. The additions to the water and the sewer CIPs, some of, I'm hesitant to take anything out of there for a couple of reasons. There's still water and sewer monies that need to be paid for the water and sewer work that was done on West Street. And we need to build a new water tank. Some of that's gonna have to be used to build the new water tank that needs to be done. I'm hesitant to take any money out of there because we need it for the water and sewer infrastructure.
But you're not taking money out of there that was scheduled to be somewhere. This was additional or unappropriated CIP money. That's not taking anything out of any request.
May I ask, when you had your CIP meetings, was that water tank specifically discussed and addressed in there like it should have been?
I don't know that the water tank was discussed.
Again,
Butch and actually Jack said Jack was part of the CIP and so wasn't Jimmy. So they could maybe answer that question as well, but I don't recall it being specifically. It was talked about, but wasn't addressed financially. I can assure
the
you
deal
that.
that was made and the contracts that were signed were done after the CIP meetings were final.
Correct. And anything that happens after the CIP really should be addressed in the next CIP year,
And the-
unless it's an emergency.
And the discussions that we had and the agreements that were made were done comfortably knowing that that extra money had gone in there. So we're fairly comfortable making those agreements, knowing you put the quote unquote extra money in there. So.
I guess we're just gonna agree to disagree that, that's fine.
OJ?
Just to be fair, none of those three items that we're talking about, the carpet, the tile, and the road paving.
Right.
Meet the $15,000 threshold for CIP. So based on past history, the CIP committee would have rejected those. So, 1 year, it's anything less than $15,000 can't come before us, and then the next year it's like, oh, well, you guys screwed up because you didn't bring these before us.
Very
That lack of consistency is
frustrating.
really deceiving. It's really deceiving, you blame it on one thing 1 year and then the next thing the next year. Do we want to make the limit 10,000? Do you want to make it 7,000? Whatever, it
Stick to
works. But we can't go back and blame that these three things didn't come before it. Well, they didn't qualify. And historically, there's been complaints over things that were on or discussed at the CIP that didn't meet that threshold, so.
For someone that's not involved in the CIP, that's confusing to me because I don't know what the rule is. And 1 minute I hear that it is 15 and then from someone else I hear that it's not 15. So I don't know what the rule is.
The bylaws say 15.
So the carpeting is 15, just saying.
No,
Yeah,
it's not.
I thought you said it was,
No,
the
sir.
floors are 15.
No, it's two separate. The tile and the carpet are two
You can
separate.
combine projects, you can combine projects.
Well, see, that's what we're hearing too, is you can combine things to make
Why
that
wouldn't you?
15, like the road thing is that only 10. Paul said before that you can combine it with other road stuff to make it 15. So
Well,
that
this
is
year-
right or it's not right. I don't.
But in the past, that hasn't, it depends on the year and the attitude. Seriously, it truly does.
It does. It does.
What is the law? What's
The
the,
bylaws say $15,000 threshold.
But can they be combined? Like he's saying, like linoleum and carpeting, well, combining that would be 15. Is that allowed or is it not
In the
allowed?
past, we've been told no.
okay,
So,
1 second, Brent. Jim?
I would point out, if we were replacing the windows in this building, you wouldn't say, well, these are windows for the conference room. These are windows for the town manager's office. So, it's flooring for the town building.
It's right.
But I
And-
will
You could
point
stand to
out
lump them together.
The 6 air conditioning units that were $5,000 a piece, we were told to fund out of the budget because it didn't meet the $15,000 threshold, even though
Who
they were
told you,
each.
who told you? Who's we? Who's they?
Our previous town manager, that's what the selectmen were told at a meeting. That's why they went in the budget 2 at a time for the last few years to replace 2 at a time. 1 year with budget cuts, we took 1 out, so we're still down 3, I think. Last year, budget cuts, we took 1 out, we're still down 3. which,
I think it's a task for the CIP committee to take on when they
Yeah.
start back up again in August, to
Put some words
clearly
into
define
clarify.
their rules and make a statement in the bylaws that say whether bundling projects is allowed or whether bundling projects is not, or whether the 15,000 threshold is appropriate or whether it should be lowered. I spoke to Mr. Bowden yesterday about it, or the day before. I think consistency is the key, because I think without that, and without it clearly defined in the bylaws, you're gonna have this problem every year.
I think,
Jack had his hand up there.
As a member of the CIP, firmly just what Brent said, you know, these are unanticipated expenses. And maybe the CIP should consider having an emergency line so that when something arises today, we're not robbing Paul Bowden to pay Peter Smith. So that, you know, it's like Brent said, you know, capital planning is just that. That's why we've got, what we go out to, Jimmy, 2027, 2028.
Yeah.
So we're, you know, 5-6 years out, so we know anticipated expenses. We all know, we all have homes, we live in homes. We know the pipes freeze, that's not an anticipated expense. So maybe we create, you know, change the bylaws with the approval of whomever has to review it and put in an emergency line so that when, if there is this overage, unexpended funds, like Paul said, we don't have to dedicate it to a specific line item.
love
And
it.
it could get carried
Great
over.
idea.
So just a thought.
are you the current chair? As a selectman, you're the current chair? Will you make a note for that for next year's meetings?
It's in there.
Perfect. Steel trap. Love it.
yeah, I just want to reiterate that, I mean, budgeting, the process of an operating budget versus a capital reserve budget, but they're two different things. And while 15,000, yeah, I mean, you don't want people asking for some spackling to patch a wall in the going into the capital reserve, but maybe 15,000 is a little high of a threshold because there are a lot of projects that, you know, some things, small expenses come out of the operating budget, but the operating budget should be fairly consistent year in, year out. Shouldn't have to make much changes other than inflation generally, or if you're adding a new service. So there should be something built in that handles your anticipated average.
A lot of towns also put a lifespan on it. They have
Right,
to-
lifes-
it's 10,000, you know, a 10,000 threshold and a 10-year lifespan.
Yeah. Also, that's another way to approach it. So,
Jim?
I have another question. The cemetery road, I mean, last meeting, there was a question as to whether or not it could be even paid for out of the CIP, or, you know, whether or not it had to come out of the cemetery's budgets. I mean, did we figure that out?
The town road portion goes to the gate.
So that means you can.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and so it sounds like all the other things are gonna be looked at in the upcoming CIP, in the CIP year.
Do we have a representative that goes to all the CFP meetings?
Yes.
Jim and Jimmy.
Yeah.
Paul's the planning board rep.
Oh.
Jack is the selectman's rep, and Karina will be there as well.
All right, so there's a motion second regarding the 15,000 for the new budget for property and building maintenance of 58,640. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the of recommending the new property and building maintenance amount of $58,640, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Opposed?
Hey,
2 no, and abstain, none? Okay, that line for 58,640 is recommended. So now down on the subtotal. The new subtotal is $1,095,736. Is there a motion to recommend the subtotal for the CRF and the trust funds in the amount of $1,095,736?
So moved.
Tammy moves, second.
Second.
Tracy second. Discussion? Okay, all in favor of recommending the subtotal for the trust funds and CRF and the amount of $1,095,736, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Opposed?
hey,
2, abstain? None? Okay. The, that amounts for the subtotal is recommended. So now we would have to do a change, Well, we have the
The only other one that doesn't
is the,
match is the warrant article for the 40,000 for conceptual design.
okay, there's been a
services.
request to reconsider the police and fire station warrant article conceptual design in the amount of $40,000.
I just,
Request made by whom?
the
By the
selectmen,
selectmen.
just today, I did a little searching on grants and things, and this one was the most interesting. Right now, USDA grant, there's $1 billion released, 1/26 of 22, so just a few days ago. Open to public safety services for purchase, construction, or improvements, such as fire departments, police stations, prisons, et cetera, et cetera. Looking through, we're on the list already, and Lincoln's there. We already qualify. We're already on the list and we qualify. That's not to say we'd be guaranteed to get it, but we're there. That Lincoln, New Hampshire is on it, qualified for 75% of the estimated project cost. Once we have the architectural design, architectural feasibility report, construction budget, agreement, correct construction agreement, architectural agreements with attachments, et cetera, which is what this warrant article is for. We already qualified for 75%. I mean, our name is already on the list. We're there. There was another one, I looked at home and I apologize, I left that notebook on my desk. That was the state, as part of the recent infrastructure bill, the state of New Hampshire received monies to, it was up to an 80% of unfunded costs for, and it, again, it said specifically, fire stations, police stations, prisons, et cetera, et cetera. So of the 25% that we would be on the hook for, we qualify for 80% of that. Funded, grant funded, not loans, grants. And that's just, that was today with maybe 35, 40 minutes of a little bit of computer searching. That's without really digging into it. Some of the monies in the capital reserve we'd have to use for grant writing. I took a peek at that USDA grant and holy cow, that's not something that we would be able to write in-house. We would need to hire a grant writer. However, we're already qualified for it. It's our name's already there. We can't even apply. We can't even think about applying without spending this money to have the conceptual design.
So that's what the rules say, is that you have to have.
Yes.
the
Yeah,
architectural
we have to
design
have
before.
all of that I said, architectural feasibility report, construction budget agreements, architectural agreements, attached amendments, there's a list, and all of that is in that RFQ.
I mean, we're qualified to apply, it doesn't mean we're gonna get it.
Of course.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would also, with the current administration in Washington, now is the time to apply for these grants and things. Who knows who's gonna be there in a couple of years? I mean, and everything that you look at the state level shows that this funding is coming in. 2023 is gonna be the big year for funding, because, things are just approved in 21, and there's more up in 22. The money's gonna start flowing. And we need to be on that bandwagon.
I did read that everybody, all towns are now starting to chase after a slice of that. It's like
We need
chase
to get
after it.
there. We need to get ahead of it.
And like Jim, the biggest thing is if we don't get a conceptual design or something from architect, we can't move forward.
Can't even try.
And, and Mr. Bowden had a great point a few weeks ago. Show us the need for a fire station, show us the need for a police station. And we're in the process of doing that right now.
This RFQ will do it.
Right, and if you really want to walk downstairs to see what they're up against and see the compliance. I mean, the fire chief should go down there, and there's all kinds of stuff that's not even legal down there. And that's your police station, what we're paying all these officers for, the conditions they're living in, and the fire station is dated back to almost the 50s and 60s. So this is our opportunity to get these grants now, not wait 5-10 years when it's going to multiply 10 times more. So, we're just looking for conceptual design money so we can move ahead. Without this money, we don't move ahead. We're at stalemate.
And I will put out there too, that we get this conceptual design, we spend the money, we have the design, we go looking for grants, and we don't get any. I am not going any further. I don't want to ask the taxpayers to fund this. I want to get these grants. I want it grant funded. I mean, if we have I don't even know, like the bridge was a $10 million bridge. We had grants, and then of the remainder, the state bridge aid paid more. We ended up paying 5% of that.
Yeah.
That I'm good with. I'm comfortable. However much that building costs, if we have to hit the taxpayers for 5% of that, that I'm okay with. I don't want the taxpayers to pay for this building. I want grants to pay for this building. And we can't even think about that without this design.
If I ask,
Well,
so if you only got a 50% grant, would you be opposed to the project?
Yes, yes. Unless it was $100,000 and we're only spending 50, but I don't see that happening. No, I don't want to spend millions and have to pay for half of it. No.
so
Mm-mm.
how is this discretionary if we're in violation of some kind of code? Do we have waivers for those violations from the state? So either we have to build it or we don't have to build it. Now you're telling me we have to build it. So
What I'm
I'm
getting out
not
of that
following
is
your
you can-
logic that if we can't afford to build it, we won't build it. We have to be in compliance with regulations at some point, or we have to have some official waiver authority give us waivers for those. Do we have those?
If this doesn't pass at town meeting, that is a very rickety bridge that we have to cross. I don't want to set the town up for a lawsuit, so I'm not going to go into it because that's what will happen. However, the answer to that is yes. We have to build something. We don't really, yes, we do.
My guess
Sorry,
is,
wait a
what-
minute,
I just said it's kind of like the levy where.
the only difference there is that with the levy, the state was gonna step in and build it and
Bill us for
their
it.
specs and bill us
Right.
for it.
Yeah.
the price went up quite a bit after 3 years of it being voted down. When we finally got to it, the price had increased considerably. There was also, it was a lot. The levy was involved. We didn't know all the costs either, even after the 3 years, and that's still gonna crop up all the time. What I'm guessing here is that, I think what you're saying is that we have to fix them, and we will end up fixing them somehow because the state's gonna require it, but it's a matter of going in and putting the Band-Aid on it to get it to pass, and it's not gonna last that long. And we're gonna have to redo the whole thing somewhere down the road. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know. That's
Yes.
not what I'm hearing.
The facility as it stands is inadequate. The space as it stands is inadequate.
Did anybody ever have explore, and I'm just, I'm just trying to get the whole picture. What the cost of getting the current facility compliant, vice building a new facility. Because like I said, you're telling me now that if we can't get it funded by the state, we won't be able to afford to build it. So if that's the case, something still is going to have to be done. So there should be some exploring of what we would do in the event that we don't have the funding to build a new one as well.
We had a building committee that met for a year, a solid year. And yes, we've explored all the options. We've looked at it. We've thrown numbers around, round numbers. We didn't have a builder come in and check and give us solid numbers. We had round numbers. And it was an overwhelming recommendation by the entire committee that we move forward with a new police and fire safety building.
What you really need to do is go down there and see what the police department.
No, I don't, because, I don't know what the compliance issues are. What you need is a professional to
Our
go
chief
down
will
there
tell you.
and look at it. And again, I've got some experience in this world, but I don't know what the I'm hearing there are compliance issues. I'm not hearing what they are.
I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing there's compliance issues, and then I'm also hearing that it's inadequate, meaning that it's not big enough.
Space.
But in any case,
Staffing level has outgrown the space.
the space that we have.
The
Unless-
town, police and
unless
fire.
the code
The town has
violations
outgrown
that are
the space.
still present.
Not only is there building code violations, there's also issues that could present problems of having both men and women in the same space and sharing the same space when it should be divided. Yeah,
I mean, I've heard that before, but I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
So we're moving
I mean,
away
it's only
from that
25 years
second.
old. Why weren't there 2 locker rooms 25 years ago?
so we're any
I
women
wasn't
police
the clerk of the
officers.
works. I don't know.
I mean, it
Weren't
makes-
any women police
Right,
officers?
there were no
Yes, we
female
did.
police officers.
Weren't any female firemen, firewomen?
But that might have been a money-saving feature at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, just,
Again, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% in favor of making sure our first responders have everything they need. I'm just curious how we are operating up until now if we're already in violation of code.
Because no one's come in to stop us yet.
Right.
That's essentially what it's been. OSHA hasn't stepped foot into this building.
And we're on the radar.
They haven't set foot in the people's places.
I'm sorry?
When I worked in Waterville Valley, they walked in and they shut us down that day.
I'm sure there's a lot of municipalities in the state of New Hampshire that have a lot worse working conditions, and I'm not saying it's right, than the town of Lincoln has. And Al, just so you know, the buildings weren't built back in the 50s and 60s. They were built more recent than that. There's a lot here that's not being said. And one of the things that's not being said is, so we build this structure, and we had all the time, there's a lot of talk, there's been talk in the community and the budget committee. We talked about it, the Board of Selectmen, about trying to see if we could get something going with Woodstock. That hasn't gone anywhere with any of the boards
Disagree.
that could matter, that could make that happen. There are things happening, and Ron's done a great job with Woodstock Fire Chief. And so far this year, as having firemen from both towns working on each other's fire department. But, and I'm not against this building, but I think it could be a phased building. I think, I truly think it could be start off with the police department and then phase in the fire department. I think the cost, just because you have the money, and by the way, the money that's gonna come from the government, is still taxpayer money.
It is.
You know, I mean, you can sit there and call it what you want, but it's taxpayer money. I mean, you gotta take a look at this budget. And all I've been hearing tonight is raise and increase.
No,
Okay.
let's keep it on what we're talking about here, on these dollar
Well,
amounts right here. This whole
that's okay.
budget and whether the
Let's keep-
national debt is part of our issue. I think
Let's
we
keep
can
it on
fight
that, Mike. Let's keep it on that, but let's keep it on the fact that we are increasing the total cost of the budget for this year. And the taxpayers in this town are not gonna put up with it, I don't believe. You're looking at a over 10% increase in the budget this year. That's a lot.
OJ,
That's not true.
Thank you.
okay.
If the budget gets approved that with the changes the selectmen made, it's a 6.9% increase over last year's budget. You have to remember, the budget includes revenue and expenses. Some people only want to look at the expenses and flail their hands and shout about it, but let's look at the revenue side. 6.9%, if you approve everything as the selectmen advised and just approved. If you wanted to take $50,000 out of some CIP, whether it's water or sewer or whatever, it would amount to a 6.18% increase over last year's approved budget. Again, what was approved at town meeting, not what was brought to town meeting and defeated. But with the inflation rate, and especially with the increase in wages, I mean, the 6.9 or 6.18% increase is not the screaming, flailing of the hands,
Right.
hysterical reaction that we seem to be talking about. It's.
I don't see any hands flat out, but
So can,
You're
so can
talking,
I ask you what the?
turning
can
down
I
money
answer-
from the federal government.
One second, Paul, 1 second.
You're talking about turning
Hold my
down.
hands up.
Yeah, let's not.
talk.
Get in
I mean-
hyperbole, we're not flailing hands. Paul's not
All right,
flailing
it is
hands.
hyperbole, but
Okay.
I've sat here and listened to Paul talk about, why aren't we applying for this grant? Why aren't we applying for that grant? You gotta look into this, you gotta look into that. And when we start talking about the grants, it's like, well, that's taxpayers' money too, you can't do that. It's just such an inconsistent message that we're trying to,
No, I don't think he was
No.
saying you can't do that. I think.
No,
he
that's not what I was saying. You're right.
can be
I know-
fiscally responsible whether you get it from, but I think we really need to focus on this 40,000 for the.
I agree. And do you know what the total, can I ask a question, Mr. Chair? Do you have an idea of what the total impact on the tax rate will be with this budget when it's done, including the revenues? So OJ, do you know what that is? How many cents per thousand or how many dollars per thousand it's gonna increase?
1.07.
What's that?
I don't know, Paul, but.
Well, you don't, you're sitting there talking like you know, you're saying as, geez, OJ, I mean, I would think for somebody that's talking about the 6%, you would know what the tax rate was gonna be, the total impact. Do you know,
Paul,
Mr. Chair, do you have any idea? It's
Paul-
about 79, it's about 79
Tracy
cents
will
a
answer
thousand.
you in
Wait,
just for a
wait,
second.
Wait. He can
It's
just-
79 cents a thousand, those who want to know.
All right, Tracy?
Paul, on the bottom of the sheet I'm looking at, the CRF trust fund thing, tax impact per thousand, at the very bottom, grand total, it says $1.07.
Well, I don't know how you did it, because I took the total assessed evaluation, divided by
It says at
1,000.
the bottom of this.
And you divide the total budget, and that's how you get it. I think Karina can,
I can tell you, I have it in the office.
Yes, please do, yes.
If you look at the very front of the operating budget, tax impact, grand total, $7.02.
yeah, but that doesn't take into consideration the offsetting revenue. You have to take the offsetting revenue off. So you have to take the total budget minus the offsetting revenue.
Right.
Okay,
When I did it, it came out to about 79 cents a thousand. Pretty interesting. No one knows that.
Well, at different meetings, I notice different people don't know different things. That's why we have the meeting, to train each other.
Then we have a committee to get input.
Well, I mean, and Mike, you're right, but maybe what we should do where it says tax impact, the tax impact should probably be what the tax impact is to the taxpayers, which would include the revenues taken off of it. So maybe that would help, take a look at a lot of these things. Take the revenues off of them so we know what the real tax impact is. It would make sense, I would think, to do that. So that someone else doesn't have to figure it out.
Yes,
I would just kind of like to, instead of going into this, Paul, you got every right to go into the big picture view. But we're kind of focusing on this 40,000 right now is the question for us. And my biggest concern in that context is that we're getting the right bang for the dollar. If we are going to build a new police station, then we should spend that money. If we're going to fix the one we have, then obviously we should. So I think that decision. And I realize sometimes you gotta throw seed money out there, but 40 grand, it's not inconsequential, but it's not a huge budget impact. But I just sort of like to know if that's the plan, is to build this building, then yes, spend the money. If it's like, oh, well, maybe we'll build it. I don't know.
Jim?
I mean, there's already 40,000 in the CIP, so this is another 40,000. So the real cost is between 70 and 80,000.
Well, that was gonna be my next question, because I heard a couple different calculations. 1/6 of the project or 1/10 of the project was needed for the conceptual design of the expected cost of the project. And then I knew there was 40 in there, and there's 40 going in now, would make it 80. So,
We had our town engineer approach, I think it was 4 different architectural firms, and they came up with the number that we will need to go out to bid on this RFQ. And the number was, I believe it was between 60 and I think it was 72, which is why we put 40 in here. We have 40 in the CIP. The remainder of the CIP, I'm hoping to have for grant writing, to hire grant writers or a grant writer, something. I wanted it on the warrant, so it went to the townspeople. We needed another 40, I wanted it on the warrant so that the taxpayers, the voters can vote on it. I didn't want it, if we put it, we could put it all in CIP over the next couple of years and just spend it, not ask anybody anything, but that's not the right thing to do. There's no transparency there. It needs to go to the voters.
I don't know, again.
We did, and
If
to
it's a
answer what
compliance
you were
issue,
saying
it doesn't go to
before,
voters.
Brent,
It's gotta
we
get
had a building committee that met for over a year. I think actually all of them went downstairs, talked to the chief, talked to the officers, looked around, saw the facility. Most of them went over to the fire department, again, walked around, talked to the chief, looked at the facility, and they made an educated decision based on the knowledge that they gained in a year of meetings, and overwhelmingly agreed, we need a new facility. We could Band-Aid the one downstairs, but we can't make it any bigger. It's not adequate.
And then if the taxpayers turn it down, this is what I'm saying, if we need a new facility, we need a new facility. I almost prefer doing what you said, whether it's lack of transparency or not, but fund it out of CIP. Because not all the voters understand that there may be a regulatory reason why you need the new facility. So either explain that very well, or I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a very awkward situation that we have a non-compliant police station. It certainly needs to be addressed,
No question. We're trying to.
but rather long-term. And this is a flyer on, this may pass the taxpayers, it may not, we may get a grant, we may not. What are we doing in the meantime?
All right, so if everything were approved as presented, the town's total portion of the tax rate will be $7.02, but the revenue itself is $1.54. That brings it to $5.48 for the municipal portion. We currently are at $5.07. That's a 41-cent increase.
It's almost 10%, 8%. 8%, the tax rate's going up 8%.
No.
She said it was, what, you said it was 501.
It was, currently the tax rate's $5.07.
507,
507, with all the increases, it would be 548. So
Yeah,
it's
so
41 cents.
about 8%.
Sure.
OJ?
That's assuming no money from the
Undesignated fund
Undesignated fund
balance is used at the
balance.
tax rate setting, and
which
Lincoln
we've done
traditionally puts
every year
a couple
since
$100,000
I've been
towards it.
every year.
Yep.
Which is why, to quote what the tax rate is gonna be, I mean, when this was brought up last year, people figured out what the tax rate was gonna be, and it was nowhere near that.
Right.
So
That's why it's not printed out earlier.
And I guess it doesn't include new properties either.
And it's also estimated revenues, and usually we're conservative with the estimated revenues, because you'll have to make it up on the other end if you're not, so.
Right.
It's a conservative guess on revenues.
And that's without the new hotel built, or that new hotel assessed, or that new hotel assessed. And
It's
Well,
essentially
houses, so-
nothing
so-
after April 1st of last year.
Right.
Of course, we spent last year basically assuming new hotels would be built, and where are they? They're not here, so.
Well, the tax rate went down last year, this
Yeah,
year.
but we spent based on the properties that were gonna be built and weren't built. We were talking about adding the offices, et cetera, so we're gonna have new hotels and I'll pay for it, and
Again, I don't think it matters what the effect has on the tax rate. If we need it, we need it. And if we don't, we don't. That's my whole point. I just don't like spending money that's not going to solve the problem. That's my biggest concern with this.
Police department.
I don't know if it's gonna ultimately solve the problem or not. But, I guess it's a step. If we need it, we need it. It doesn't really matter what the ultimate tax rate is. This community should be fiscally responsible and not spend money that doesn't need to be spent.
I have one more question. Are there any strings attached to these grants that you know of?
I didn't get into I honestly looked at the USDA application and went, holy cow, we need a grant writer. So no, I didn't get that far into it.
Can North Country Council not write grants for us?
Some, yes. There's some specific grant writers that we've worked with in the past that do specific public safety, police, fire, et cetera, grants. And in my opinion, some of the ones we received, it was well worth the money we spent.
Yeah, the fire department, or the police department is just too small. I mean, it's one thing that to fix some things, but I think you can't really add on downstairs.
No.
Yeah.
Easy way, not something that's gonna cost less.
Same with the fire department. It was talk at one point about, well, you can just add on to that. When the library expanded, that used up the room. I mean, we could go, we'd have to eliminate Cross Street.
For that parking area down below the.
We'd have to eliminate Cross Street. Where you putting your firemen when they pull in to respond to it? You can't park them out front because then you can't get the trucks out.
It was supposed to be that for you. That was designed that way, just for your information. It was designed so it could expand into that parking just off of Cross Street, and the fire department could park between in the back and also end up that town parking area right there for the amount of times there was fire. So there was expansion capabilities built in when they built the fire department.
That would take away the parking flapjacks.
And looking at the
saying,
infrastructure.
that's what-
We spent a lot of money stabilizing that building because it was literally sinking. And we're definitely told when it was done that we would absolutely need to do it again. I don't think I would recommend adding on to a building that's already structurally not 100% sound.
Do we have a structural report on that?
Yes, there definitely is some. I remember Butch had, I remember he had them.
Can we take a look at that?
Absolutely.
Is that available to the public?
As soon as I find them, give me a day to dig and we'll see what we can find. We'll work on that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one of the engineers almost fell on top of the rescue. He
Yeah.
took a misstep. He was racking the building and then he took a misstep and broke through the sheetrock. Almost went down onto the rescue because he was standing up there with Bill Willie shaking the building.
The building had separated. Yeah. at the-
Well,
at the-
there wasn't
yeah.
enough bracing done.
Right.
They put a whole, well, they called it a flat of 2x4s up in the existing
Right.
rafters to stabilize the building, because you could just stand there. So there is an engineering report, we just gotta find it.
I remember there's being something in there about the borings showed burnt timbers from when the hotel had burnt down. And it was just kind of covered up and then built on top of. So, yeah.
So it's fair amount of work.
Make a motion to add in the 40,000.
Or to.
No, hold on.
to-
no.
I think it's a
There's a motion
recommendation.
out. There's a motion out there.
That was dug up.
There's no motion.
a
We didn't have
discussion
people
point.
say this.
No,
We
we
didn't
just,
do it on the 40?
No.
we just opened it up for discussion.
We didn't make a
I thought,
motion.
it came up, is there a motion to review?
She just said she wanted to talk about it.
We opened it up.
There's no motion.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Yeah, I thought so.
To
Is there a
recommend.
motion to reconsider
No.
the $40,000 for the police station and conceptual design?
There wasn't, but
Okay,
Tracy's gonna move that one and I'll
Okay.
second it.
okay, motion and second. Okay,
There, now we're.
okay.
We've had a
Um,
bunch of discussion.
Further discussion?
Yeah, one more question. We allocate that 40,000 for the design. When are you gonna put it up for a vote for the taxpayers?
Hopefully, again, fingers crossed, we get our architectural design, everything we need, our ducks in a row. And can start applying for grants and come back and to town meeting 2023. With some grants, with some hard figures, with some numbers, with some facts, and put it up for a vote for the townspeople to say, yes, we want to build it, or no, we don't. I mean, like I said, my hope is to get this thing funded, if not all by grants, but at least, the huge majority of it. And if we have to come to the taxpayers for 5% or 10% of the cost or something, a smaller number, I'm okay with that. So that's what I am going to try to do. Yes, sir.
Yes, Jack.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Chairman.
Have it.
I get
You
it,
know,
yeah.
I was the only selectman that voted against this, Brent, because I felt that the taxpayers should have a say prior to expending the money. You know, I appreciate what everybody in this room has said. Certainly, you know, need is, you know, driven, or cost is driven by need. But by the same token, if the taxpayer doesn't want it, I was elected by the taxpayer, then, you know, I'm not gonna support it. So I personally felt, my colleagues disagreed on the board, that it should be put on a non-binding warrant article before the town without any money, just saying, are you in favor of exploring and expending X amount of dollars or money in the future to do it? If they say yes, the next day, you know, we've got $40,000, that's a start. Like Tammy said, I've written literally and received tens of millions of dollars of federal grants in my previous position. You don't always get them. You hope you do, but there's no guarantee. And again, as a taxpayer, I don't want to be burdened with it. I don't want to burden my fellow taxpayers. I mean, you know, we've listened to people say before that, you know, it's getting to the point where people can't afford to live in town. Like everybody has said, I respect Ron, you know, Al, those that are in the public safety sector. I respect the police. I have somewhat of a law enforcement background for many years. Again, can we make do with what we have by putting, quote, a Band-Aid approach? Yes, but without jeopardizing public safety, no. If we've got this report from the state that says we've got violations, then that's something that I think the board should deal with, OJ, on our level and say, wait a minute, folks, we've got to do something immediately. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents worth, which today's inflation is worth 1 cent.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you gave us something that we can do.
No.
Did you say you wanted an article to go out just as a non-binding
It
article?
doesn't have to be an article, Mike. It could just be a question without, you know, going through the formal process.
But that's nothing that the budget committee.
Right,
can
we
do.
won't do that.
Okay.
No, we don't, it's not the budget committee. that does that. But I mean, so the board is still divided, the select board is divided.
Well, we're divided on how it goes
I don't
out.
know, I understand,
That's
but
it.
the vote last week was
They-
2-1, and it's still 2-1.
Correct. But it's not, the vote is how it should go out. Jack wants to ask the voters if they even want to think about doing this. We want to ask the voters the same exact thing. That's what OJ and I agreed to ask them, the same exact question. The only difference is if we get a yes, this article, we can move on this. The difference if we put in just a question with no money on it and we get a yes, we're still sitting on our hands for a year.
No, we've got $40,000.
Which
in the
isn't even gonna
CIP.
come close, Jack. It's not gonna come close.
We've got 40,000 in the CIP.
Then it's not gonna do it. I've already explained that. The estimate from the architects was 60 to 72 was the firms that were asked. 40 is not gonna touch it. So we'd be sitting on our hands for another year.
If you had the 40,000, you could apply for the grant.
No, we can't apply for the
Well, there's
grant
other-
without
no,
the
There's other grants
design.
available. There are
goodness.
grants available for
Ray has to say that.
services. I'm not talking about the grant that you were mentioned in your speech earlier.
Ray?
Thank you. I like Jack's approach here, and I would suggest that we make sure in that approach, if we were to follow it, we know exactly the status of this building settling issue. I think that should be in that communication to the taxpayers as well. I think that's vital because it certainly would change my approach to the whole issue if I knew the building was settling and couldn't be relied upon, or that it was sound. So I think that has to be part of what we're talking about here in going forward.
We can certainly have that information available at for town meeting. Absolutely.
Hey, Mike,
Yes, Paul?
look, you know, also in the CIP, there's fire department building and infrastructure, there's $35,000 in that. But remember, when we're talking about CIP, in the property and building maintenance capital reserve, there's currently 257,000 plus gonna put 43,000 in this year. It's close to 300,000 in there. So if we took Jack's approach and did the non-binding referendum, and it came back and everybody was really gung ho and wanted to get this thing done, there is money that could be moved around, which the Board of Selectmen does within the CIP the CIP format to be able to give the extra money besides the 40,000 that's currently in there. So to me, I would agree with Jack that, some sort of non-binding referendum, and if it comes back overwhelming, once you get all the information, then, then there's plenty of availability of funds in the current property and building maintenance CIP to be able to do this.
A non-binding.
The one thing I would also ask is that, like I said, there was $35,000 in the fire department and infrastructure CIP. I don't know why, if we had all of these things that were code violations and stuff, why we weren't using that $35,000 to correct some of those.
That's supposed to go to new siding on the building that's currently blowing off.
Right.
Okay. Karina?
Got to use it.
Non-binding referendums are not really, they're not, essentially, they mean nothing. In all due respect, they do mean nothing. The board could go ahead, if the town votes on it the following day, and make the decision to do the exact opposite. It's not really something that's smiled upon by the Department of Revenue or,
Right.
the New Hampshire Municipal Association. It really is just, I guess, getting a feel for things, but they're exactly that. They're non-binding referendums. They essentially, the town does not have to follow it. The Board of Selectmen does not have to follow it. It's essentially,
It's a poll.
public, right, it's a poll. I mean, you
But
could
that
send out,
gives you an
you
idea.
could send out a survey,
Sure, and that gives you an idea whether you're comfortable moving forward with something, because you get. an
Sure,
idea.
I think
how the
what
people
we're
feel about it.
missing is that there is money coming down. There is money that is going to be introduced with the infrastructure bill in 2023. We have been told that is when the money is going to be available. We can go to town meeting with a non-binding referendum in 2022 and not be able to do anything. Because in 2023, by the time we get approval, if that's what the town wants, it's going to be too late.
Right.
Because we're gonna need to have our ducks in a row beforehand. If we wait until 2023 and maybe get the money or maybe not get the money, it's going to be too late at that point to get an engineer on board, to get an architect on board, to do the spatial needs study. We're not going, it's timeliness. And I know no one wants to make a knee-jerk reaction because we're short on time, but it's the truth. We are short on time.
But you're not short on money, Karina. And actually that non-binding referendum has been used in the town for ages. And it's actually helped guide this town for a long time in the direction of where they want to go and where they don't want to go, so that the selectmen have an idea of how the taxpayers feel. So I think that's an important aspect. And I don't agree with you, Karina, that there's not enough money in the current CIP to be able to fund the extra that you would need to do this building. The building as it sits right now is a certain size. It may not need to be that size. So everything's being based on the size of that building. So when it all shakes out, maybe it is a phase project, and maybe it only gets the police department done and not the fire department. Or maybe you need both. I don't know. There's a lot of questions here, and they're all related to money, but there is currently still enough money to be able to do. Tammy said you needed 50 or 60,000 bucks to do that. You had 40. You're asking for another 40. You really only need 20. I thought I heard Tammy say that the other 20 was for a public outreach program. That they were hoping to use some of that money for, but I guess not. That's not what I heard tonight. So, but anyway, you need about 20,000 more to be able to do this, from what I see, to be able to do that architectural process that you have, given the current size that the building committee is requesting, if it gets to be that. It is. I would think that in the grant format that you would need to show public support. I guess one way is to vote on some of the money, but the other way to show public support is a non-binding referendum. So
I don't think the size of the building has been decided upon. I think
That's in the
part
it
of
certainly has. It certainly has,
No,
according
I
to
think-
the press
Part of the conceptual design includes a spatial needs assessment. I think we put numbers on paper to get to a starting point, but the size of the building, the phase, if it's going to be a phased approach, has not been decided. That is what is part of this planning process, is to identify what the needs of the town are. Do we need a fire station? Can we do a phased approach? Do we need carports? Do we need bays for every single vehicle? That is part of this process. Nothing has been set in stone. No one has said we need 15,000 square feet. We've put soft figures on paper to get something on paper, but nothing has been set in stone. That's what this process is for.
On the input from the committee, we have.
Well, the request for qualifications has specific quantities. So, and that's what went out for people to bid on, right? The request.
No,
for
nothing has gone out, Paul.
If we have the RFQ,
A draft of the RFQ.
nothing has gone out. The RFQ is not out. We don't have the money for the RFQ until after town meeting, hopefully. The figures, the numbers, the whatever that's in there is based on input from the committee, based on educated guesses, based on the information that we have and have had. That's what's in there. There's nothing set in stone. We did the best we could to come up with something in order to get the information we needed to go to town meeting. You can't ask us to do any more than that.
No, I agree, Tammy, but I guess listening to what you just said, then you really don't know whether you need 60,000 or not. You really don't know what size of the building is you're gonna be looking at.
This,
We
I
just
mean,
need to move them.
well, I'm certainly not looking to make any enemies, but I'll throw this in only because it's just, and I'll put it in as, and I said we should read the minutes of meetings. And the only difficulty I have with the arguments against this $40,000 conceptual design, and again, it's not pointing at anybody else, but I think it's a fault of when everything is not, there's not a lot of opinion. But in that CIP meeting, I heard 3 people say, I don't think we need that building. And from there, it went to cut the funding. And so what I'm saying in that is that I don't, therefore, that's the basis of stuff. And I don't think that we should take that as the basis and now move it into our decision on whether to fund it or not. It goes to the people. We get it out and go to the people, and then the people tell us whether they want to do it, they want the warrant article, or they don't.
It's going to the meeting anyway, regardless of how we vote.
Yes, it
tonight.
is, it is.
Correct.
And the reason that I would recommend it is because of the way, and it's not anything on anybody's integrity list or anything like that. But it happened that it came together, 3 people said, I don't think anybody in town wants that building. They cut the phone.
I don't recall the meeting going that way at all.
The
We made a
CIP
vote based on the information we had available.
At first, there wasn't a vote.
Read the minutes,
In the first minute, and I don't want to read the minutes. We're not gonna go into that.
suggesting.
If you could read the minutes, and everybody's had them in the drive there for a while, but in the first meeting, it was one of those that, and again, it's not anybody doing anything wrong. It's the effect of when people are small, there's 3, and it's like, we can do this. Oh, boom, we did that. And I'm not saying your decisions were wrong, but I don't think it has enough eyeballs on it. So I would recommend, because of this, I would like to recommend that the budget, my opinion, it's just my opinion, that it goes there with a clean slate. Is you got a committee that, and who was on the committee, if I may ask?
CIP committee,
No, the committee
It's,
for this.
there were 10, we had input from 10 people on the committee.
Okay.
Do you want me to name them?
Could you?
Al Poole and John Hettinger, Debbie Salino, Paul Mullen, Chief Beard, Chief Morris, Deputy Chief Burnham, myself, a former town manager, well, you were sat in on a couple of them once you came on board.
The last one.
And we had input from town engineer Ray Corber. So it's 10 people that met for over a year and discussed this, yet 3 people in a CIP meeting decided we don't need it.
Well, it was trying, it's 10 people decided they did need it and 3 people decided they didn't need it.
Right.
That's
You're
kind of
trying to
equal.
rehash the vote of the CIP, really, and that's not appropriate.
Yeah, pardon me?
you're trying to revote the
And this is all-
CIP, I mean,
Hearsay, I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm not
that
revoting
this-
the CIP.
It's in the minutes.
Yeah, I know, but I don't have
I'm
the
just-
minutes in front of me.
I'm just stating, but the minutes have been in the drive, and I brought that out early on in the season,
I
that
mean, you've
this
been
is
on the
what's in
attack
there.
since then.
Pardon me?
You've been on the attack about that vote since budget season started.
We're not allowed to discuss my motives.
In
Okay?
a statement, I don't care what your
That's,
vote is.
that's a motive. You're attacking my motive.
Okay.
So all I'm saying in this is that I'm saying that 10 people said we need it and 3 people said we didn't. Both of them could be right and both of them could be wrong. I'm not saying the 10 were correct, but I'm saying there's a balancing thing in there that it brings it out to us. And now we've got another 10 or 12 people that are looking at it. And so we could throw a recommendation out and then it goes to the town. So we can do that.
The people who think it's right should vote for it. The people who
And that's
don't
why
should vote against it.
further discussion? Okay.
Move the question.
All in favor of reconsidering our recommendation for the $40,000 police fire station conceptual design? Please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 ayes. Opposed? 1,
Aye.
3.
3, opposed, abstain? Okay, the motion succeeds.
Thank you for
The
that.
budget committee will recommend the $40,000 for the police and fire station conceptual design. Thank you.
Now,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
have we failed to address the building settlement issue?
Well, we can't.
we will have that, we need to find that information. It was done several years ago when they did that work, and I've got to find the report.
2013.
It was 13 or 14. I will find that and I will make sure we have that information available for town meeting.
Do we need to adjust that total now since we took the 40 out? Is this now a new total that we have to?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it, did you do the math? I just did.
Yep, so special
8,816,085 is the total.
So
Special warrant articles would be the BOS recommended of 284,073.
I'm sorry.
The board of the special warrant articles total will be $284,073. 284,073.
Right.
So the
The grand total.
total, grand total will be $8,816,085. 8816,085.
I don't,
That's not the.
that's not the number I have.
No? Hang on then. Let's double check that.
I have 8,841,725. Because you have to add in the money.
8841725.
8841725.
Thank you. Yeah. 8841725. Thank you. That other one was my previous.
Yeah, you needed to add the money that we put
Yeah.
into the capital.
Yeah,
reserves.
yeah, yeah. And I did not do that.
So the grand total
The
is what we
grand
voted on.
total, $8,841,725. Do you need a motion on the grand
For the
total?
total budget.
Grand total.
So moved. I moved that.
Well, don't we need to go in and adjust some of these
The other
operating
one.
lines?
You need to adjust the special warrant articles.
We did.
Yeah,
We
We
did
did.
that.
But don't we have to, things that went into capital, don't we have to take those out of the operating?
We did.
Or did we do that
You
last
did
time?
that at the last
Okay,
meeting.
all right, good.
but don't we, what I'm saying is, don't we have to do the subtotal for the warrant articles first and then the grand total?
Yes, I think so.
So that you,
That 284,073, that's different than what we voted on before because we had taken out the 40.
Correct.
So we have to vote on
Oh.
that one first and then the grand
the
total.
special warrant articles, total of $284,073.
That one we have to vote on
So moved.
first.
So it's
Gotcha, I understand what you're saying.
284,073.
Yeah.
Yes, second, I'll do a second on that.
Okay, discussion? Okay, all in favor of recommending the special warrant articles budget for $284,073, please raise your right hand and say aye.
I,
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I read that right?
I got
Yes.
5. Brett, were you a yes or no?
No.
No, oh, okay, so 6. I got 5 and a 5.
Okay, 5.
Yeah.
Opposed?
It's
1,
3.
2, 3?
Yeah.
Okay. The motion to recommend the special warrant article budget for $284,073 is passed.
Now we gotta do the grand total one of the 8.
Okay,
8 million, yeah.
okay. Is there a motion to recommend the grand total budget in the amount of $8,841,725?
So moved.
Tammy motion, second. Al, second. Discussion. Okay, all in favor of recommending the grand total budget in the amount of $8,841,700. Pardon me?
Sorry, Ray had his hand up.
Ray, did you have a, well, in the middle
No,
one?
I was was anticipating my.
You
Ah.
anticipated.
I do that too.
He's a youngster.
All right, let me start that over. Thank you. It wasn't my fault that it screwed up. All those in favor of recommending the grand total budget in the amount of $8,841,725, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
2.
2. Okay, the grand total budget is recommended. Thank you. Yes.
Before we go any further, I just want to make sure that we open up to those online if they have any comment. We're still on.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I see that there. I'm
There's some
sorry.
people there.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment? I see 2 other names out there that are part of the public.
Ryan, Dave, and Dave.
David and David. And
I
Ronnie.
only see one David.
There's David.
The
Bowe,
chair's
David-
block is the bottom one.
Yeah,
Look over the chair.
That's because Al's
Yeah.
not see-through.
it's Ryan, David, and David.
Not trans.
Oh, okay. All right.
2 Davids and a Ryan.
Have we opened it
Oh,
up?
it's
to
David
public-
Bowden. I thought
Yeah.
that was-
Have we opened it up to public
The
comment?
public hearings, though, we've been in
Yeah.
public hearings the whole time.
It's, yeah, that is all,
Yeah.
it's been interactive. Okay, we've asked, maybe, did everybody hear us? Would anybody like to comment from the Zoom public? No?
Guess not.
Great.
Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Motion, Al, second. Susan, discussion? Well, thank you, everyone. It was very educational.
Now, wait a minute, we
Interesting.
adjourned that public one, do we have to adjourn our budget one?
Yes.
Yes, that one I knew. I was
Oh my gosh.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, okay, it's unanimous, public hearing is closed.
I would like to ask before we adjourn, at town meeting, does the budget committee want to sit at the table to the right of the, what did we ask last year, or the year before, I should say? We're in the gym again. Does the budget
we are?
committee want
gym?
to sit up front?
What
This
gym?
is the high school gym.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Does the budget, the selectmen, the secretary want to sit up at the front to the left of the podium here?
I mean, typically only the chairs would sit.
yeah, he's only been up
Oh,
there.
the chair, that's
Yeah.
usually.
That's all, he's usually been milling up
Um,
there.
I think, and I don't necessarily need that. But it's 12 of us.
Whole committee would sit
yeah,
up
but
there.
12 of us sitting up there seems a little.
Yeah, since I've been here, I've never sat up there, I've always been in the audience.
All in
Just wanted to
favor of
ask
having
before we
mics
went
up
too
there?
far.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Well, you know, I want to do it right.
All by himself.
Yeah.
I'll sit there with the
Target
mic.
on it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we all have to wear helmets.
It's up to you guys, really. I wanted to ask before we adjourn, that's all.
Yeah,
And-
Frank usually goes up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Sounds
go,
good.
I'll go up.
We'll make room for you then.
Okay.
Great.
And, oh, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Well,
our meeting?
you're gonna have 2 sets of minutes that need to be approved. Do you want to set a meeting for that? How do you want to handle that?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Do you want to do
No.
it by Zoom? Do you want?
We just do it at our next meeting.
we do our
Okay.
next meeting. We have our meeting right
Okay.
after town meeting.
Thank you.
So we'll do it then.
Perfect, thank you.
I will send an email to you, Mike, when we make the updates in the budget and the warrant is ready to be signed, and so then everyone can come in and sign the.
Yes, what's
legal
our,
documents.
because we have to get it, our Department of Revenue by.
Yeah, technically, it doesn't need to be posted until February 21st, so we have a little bit of time.
But it needs to get. the
But
printers.
we'll most likely do it either tomorrow or if
Okay.
it's not a crazy snow day, if not Monday. So I'll let you know when it's completed and then.
And if anybody has a hard time coming in, let me know, we will bring it to you.
We do not have another meeting set though after town.
Right, I was
So
gonna
we'll
say.
do that. We'll
Oh,
get to
okay.
that. Is,
Okay.
we do it after, after town meeting.
Okay.
And now I understand that, Ray missed the sign up for the, to be on the ballot for the committee this time, upcoming. And I was- what's that?
Wait a minute.
That's what I was going to say, as far as Ray does want to be on, he got killed with the computer outage. He does want to be on, so I talked to him today, and as far as Ray, if I'm saying this correctly, is, yeah, he'd like to be in, so if we can write him in.
Okay.
That would be,
I believe Ray was gonna check with our town clerk to find out exactly which line was blank, what term it was. There was a blanks, I think it might be for a 2-year term, or I'm not exactly sure, but
But I mean, it'll say it on the ballot, because it'll say vote for no more than
Yeah.
X.
Right,
And if you
but-
got 3
Well,
names out of 4,
vacancies.
then. that's
hoping
your
to
right.
specify for those that aren't super familiar so that he gets on there.
okay, all right, well, that's it.
Write 'em in everywhere.
Yes,
Well,
Ray for president.
Yes.
will you need your representation when you're meeting with the town about how to sign up?
I appreciate your representation, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I'm not capable of doing it myself.
That's,
It happens.
that's how we make money. But thank you, everyone. I hope we all walk out of here, and I said it last year. We've done our job. I feel that we've done our job. There's disagreements. It's not always warm and supportive environment, but we should have disagreements.
We've never considered a warm and supportive environment.
No, I was being a little sarcastic on that, but on some it is. We should throw some warm and support in there along with it.
I'm feeling nothing but love.
Right.
I personally appreciate each and every one of you. Everybody has a voice and opinion, and it would be really boring and quite frankly, a disservice to the town if we all agreed on everything, truly.
Right. We're not supposed to do that.
Discussion is valuable, and I thank every one of you for volunteering for a thankless position and doing the work quite for nothing. I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you. And we appreciate yours, the selectmen, everybody that's here. Everybody's got a target on them, as well, but that's the risk you take, but you should get your opinion out. That's the way it works. So, did I have a motion to adjourn? I think
Yes, so
I did.
moved.
Okay, it was moved. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of adjourn, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone, very much.